They're two happy women bringing you inspiring stories, politics, pop culture, and lifestyle hacks, all with an eye to making our communities and our country a better place to live. It's the Happy Women Podcast with your hosts, Jen Horn and Katie Gorka.
Thanks for joining us, and welcome to another episode of the Happy Women Podcast. I'm Jennifer Horn.
And I'm Katie Gorka.
All right, guys. So we always talk about how politics, it can stress you out. It can take you over. You have to have an outlet for something, some fun. And that's one of the things we want to do here on the podcast, is to just give you a little glimpse or get you thinking about some of the good stuff out in pop culture, whether it's movies or books, music, plays, that kind of thing. A few weeks ago, Katie, you did your picks for best movies. And so now it's my turn.
I'm so excited. I'm going to be really curious to see how much overlap there is. And is this going to be like a test of our friendship?
Nope. It's not going to be a test of our friendship at all. I think we're very compatible in our movie viewing. We'll see. You can tell me at the end what you think of my list. I do want to say some things, full disclosure. One, I always tell people I have the worst taste in music, movies, TV shows. I like the basics. I don't need your messaging to hit me over the head. I just like things that are like, I like country music. I Love Lucy. I like things that are easy, because for me, I use my viewing and my time for the arts as a way to unwind and relax from what is a pretty stressful job and industry that we're in. And so for me, anything that can totally make me disappear is exactly what I'm looking for in a book or a movie or a TV show. That being said, I was super stressed when you brought this up, because at first it was like our top 10 movies. And I thought, there is a lot of pressure to put 10 movies on a list, because I got to tell you, you could ask me today and my list will be different than it is tomorrow. It's kind of like what hits with you and resonates with your heart at the moment. So I broke the rules. And I thought we could go through this quickly, but I just went freewheeling and I just did brainstorming of all my favorite movies for different reasons. There are probably more than 10, but we'll go quickly through them. So are you ready?
Yes, I'm excited. I think it's going to show me a whole different side of you.
You're right. My first one, I'm just kidding. Pulp Fiction. No, I'm just kidding. I hated that. All right. So first off on the list, because I thought back to when I was a kid, and it's a movie that I still love watching. And I think we talked about it during your episode. I absolutely love The Wizard of Oz. For some reason, when I was a kid, it captured me so much, obviously because of the scenery, the pretty amazing effects. Of course, I loved Glinda's dress, because very much a girly girl. But there's something about that story that I also loved, because, in some respect, and you can read more about that in Wicked, and there's a new Wicked movie coming out. There is probably a bit of a misunderstanding of a lot of the villains that we get to know in some of our favorite movies. So I definitely had to start off with The Wizard of Oz.
Wait, now I just have to ask you, where do you stand on the various theories about what the movie was really about? Do you buy into that, or you don't?
Do you? No. I mean, I always just took it for what it is. Again, that's what I look for, is just something that brings you to a different place. And I feel like The Wizard of Oz was absolutely wonderful for that. I think you can find messaging, or you can find hidden messages or symbolism in everything, but I don't know. I think it's just The Wizard of Oz in my mind. All right, next up on the list, it's been my favorite movie since I saw it for the first time. It's Tombstone. Val Kilmer as Doc Holliday is maybe my most favorite movie character of, I love it. I love it. Tombstone, I think, is fun. I know it's surprising because it's a Western, but the dialogue, the relationship between Kurt Russell and Val Kilmer, I loved that movie. It was so entertaining. And I really do think that is Val Kilmer's best performance of his career. He was just funny, sad, all at the same time. And so, yeah, Tombstone, you look shocked. How come?
I am totally shocked. First of all, because it's a movie I've never seen.
Never signed it. It's so good.
Yeah, I'm excited. But this is intriguing to me, because you said Val Kilmer, this is Doc Holliday, I should say, played by Val Kilmer, is one of your favorite, if not your favorite, male characters in a movie. Is that what you said? Am I getting it right?
I said he was I think it's one of my favorite performances, I should say. Because
performance. That's different.
Yeah,
okay.
I should say that because my favorite characters, obviously, I'm going to always go to like the James Bonds, or I'm going to go to something probably a little bit different. But there was something about Val Kilmer in that role that was just good. And he was just fun to watch.
So describe for me Doc Holliday.
He's drunk. He's dying. And I think my most favorite line from the movie is he's getting ready to have a shootout with somebody and he's messed up. And the guy says, Doc, there's no way that you can get into this shootout with me. You're drunk. I'm paraphrasing here. And you're seeing double. You're so drunk. And he said, that's all right. I have 2 guns, one for each of you. And he just delivered these amazing lines that were it was just a fun movie. It was a good one. So,
but there's obviously, it's interesting because there's obviously something still sympathetic about him, even though he's a drunk, right?
Well, that's what I said. That's why I think he's very funny in the movie, but there's also something incredibly sad about him too. So he just did a good job of embodying that. And the story, I think the Old West, Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday, there's different versions of that film all over the place, but definitely I like Tombstone. I think you should watch it. I feel like you would like it. I really do.
I will watch it.
So that was a controversial one for you. All right. And I mentioned to you in your episode that I absolutely love Steel Magnolias. Whenever I need a cry, I watch this. First of all, anything Dolly Parton is in, as we discussed.
Yep.
Love Dolly Parton. I think Shirley MacLaine was really fun in it. Olympia Dukakis. I'm listing like all of the donors to the Democrat Party. Julia Roberts is another one. I'm saying, I don't know if I still love it today, but when I first saw this movie, it's one that I watch a lot when I'm on TV or when I'm watching TV and it comes on. And again, I liked that because I think it was one of the first films to depict really good multidimensional female friendships. And that was something I think that resonated for me, even though I was really young when it came out. But looking back, I think that's what I really loved, is exploring those relationships. It wasn't your typical romance movie. It wasn't an action movie. This was really a movie about females and how they get along with each other and creating their own family out of those friendships. So love Steel Magnolias.
I have to mention in the context of that one, the one that strikes me that way is The Secret Life of Bees. It's almost like the Black woman's version of Steel Magnolias, because it is, first of all, it's really only about the women. But it is such an incredible array of female talent, diverse characters, rich relationships. I just love that movie.
And I loved the book too. I don't know if you read the book,
yes.
but I thought it was amazing too. That's a great point. It's very similar. All right. Next on the list, and I'm telling you, this list, you'd look at me and you think you'd have to institutionalize me. Next up is Silence of the Lambs. Perfect for Halloween.
Yeah. Incredible.
I'm not into a jump scare movie at all, but I love psychological storytelling like this. And I think the scenes between Anthony Hopkins, who I do think is an incredible actor, and Jodie Foster are just incredible. That year, I think they even won Academy Awards, and you don't see movies like that usually get awarded. But again, rich characters, relationships, also the psychological factor. I've always thought that was a really outstanding film. And I actually was surprised to see that it made it to the list of a lot of best movies of all time. People put Silence of the Lambs on that list. So,
I'm not surprised by that. But I also have to say, Jodie Foster is one of the best actresses of our age. I mean, I don't think she's been in anything that I haven't loved.
That people go, oh, she stinks. No, she's good in everything. She's
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. And I loved that movie. I just have to throw in, it's not probably one of my favorites, but I did put a little asterisk here as an honorable mention. And that is for a movie you and I both really liked this last award cycle. American Fiction, I think, is on the list of films that I would want to mention. I really loved it. I think it was supposed to somehow be, I think maybe they had set out at some point to try to make this like a liberal film, but I thought it had such a conservative message. I thought that it was absolutely incredible about the power of the individual, not the skin color. If you get a chance to see American Fiction, I think it's definitely worth seeing. So I can't say it's on again, this is in no particular order. This is a brainstorming of just the films that are resonating with me.
Can I just add as well? I think one of the things, I'm disappointed in myself that I didn't put American Fiction in my top 10 now, because I think I would put it there. And I'll tell you what I loved about it. the way he so deftly handled, and I say he because I'm referring to the author of the original novel. I'm blanking. What's his name?
I know, I'm blanking.
It'll come to me if we talk long enough because I have a stack of his books on my bedside table. I thought it was really beautiful the way he sort of balanced and interwove the political and the very personal, because there's the whole political story of it, and it's a real mockery of DEI. He really makes fun of, sort of the white women who have a very cliched expectation of the Black experience, right? And it's a very patronizing, caricatured expectation, but yet you still have this incredible story of the very rich family relationships, the struggles that they have with each other. I think it's an incredible movie. It's no secret the world's unpredictable. One moment everything's fine, and the next the power's out and the cell towers are down. But with a satellite phone from sat123.com, you don't have to be cut off from the world. No matter where you are or what's happening, Sat123 keeps you connected. Whether you're deep in the mountains, on the road, or dealing with a natural disaster, your satellite phone will work when nothing else does. This is about being prepared. Sat123.com is family-owned, American-built, and focused on keeping you safe. They understand that in today's world, connection is more than convenience. It's essential. So here's the deal. Go to sat123.com and use code Katie for $25 off your first purchase. Don't get caught off guard. Stay connected. Stay prepared with Sat123.
And I think it was really relatable no matter what you watch. And Percival Everett, I just looked it up, is the author.
Percival Everett. Oh, thank you. Yeah.
I know. I had to look it up because it was driving me crazy.
Yes, good.
Again, switching gears, again, not my top 10. I've totally broken all the rules, but a book that I did not see till I was in college. I took an interesting class in college. It was film as literature. And these were great works of literature that were turned into great movies. And I read for the first time Breakfast at Tiffany's. Have you ever read the book Breakfast at Tiffany's?
Oh, I'm not sure that I have.
It's a very quick read. It is very dark. And I was very surprised that Breakfast at Tiffany's was so dark, because then when I saw the film, it was like this light and beautiful, happy film. I really loved the movie. I love Audrey Hepburn. I think there's so much beautiful stuff to look at. She's gorgeous. Seeing the different scenes of New York in that era was absolutely great. But I really would say the reason it stuck out for me, and I added it to the list, is this is an example of the way that you can totally interpret a book much differently when you create a movie out of it. And so if you have a chance and you're interested and you do love Audrey Hepburn and you like the story, I would say read the book and then watch the movie. It doesn't take very long to read the book, and it's a fun thing to do. It's a fun experiment.
Wow.
Okay. Little Christmas movie time, a break. One movie that was on your list that's on mine, Love Actually. Absolutely love it. I think it is delightful. It is fun. It is sweet. It's romantic. It's one of those movies that make you feel like you're warm and fuzzy when you watch it. And for that reason, plus, as I said, I have terrible taste in music. I love that Mariah Carey Christmas song. So All I Want for Christmas Is You. I'm all about it.
And I think that's I don't know why, but you can watch that movie every single year and not get tired of it.
I know.
Yep.
And then now another one that's a little lesser known, but came to my mind as soon as I wrote down Love Actually, is a film called Christmas in Connecticut. Have you ever seen it?
Yes, I'm only picturing that one scene where somebody shows up at the house. Remind me of the story. I can't quite remember it.
So every year I always try to hunt down a Christmas movie that I haven't seen because I'm a big Christmas person. And so a couple of years ago, I had my parents over and I was like, okay, I found us one. It's an older movie. Christmas in Connecticut is the name. And it's about a woman who is kind of like an Ann Landers or a Dear Abby. She's like she's supposed to be like this domestic diva. She talks about having a family. She talks about recipes and cooking. Well, it turns out she's actually single, and she's just doing this created character to get her column published, essentially. And so she goes to Connecticut. She's supposed to meet with like her publisher or something. So she's trying to put on airs that she is this perfect housewife with the perfect kid, the perfect family. And of course, spoiler alert, she falls in love with a passing visitor. And so everything sort of falls apart. But it's funny, it's sweet, it's kind of zany. It reminds me very much, since I love Lucy and I love classic TV. It's a lot like that. It's a fun Christmas movie, I think. So
wait, before we move away from it, I think we're going to have to come back to this to discuss it. But one of the recent Christmas movies that I discovered was The Bishop's Wife. Have you ever seen that?
Yes, I have. There's multiple versions of that. That's an incredible film. I love it. They did like a Whitney Houston version, I think, and then there's the original version. Yeah, something.
Oh, I only know the old version. I thought it was just a heartbreaker. Okay, so I think what we're gonna have to do is we will have to have a special episode just on Christmas movies.
Oh, I could fill up even more paper than this. Okay. So moving on, the last Mission Impossible movie, I cannot remember the name, but the last one I thought was so incredible. I have mixed reviews on Tom Cruise, the whole Scientology bit. I don't know. But that guy and his stunts, absolutely phenomenal. And I thought sometimes with action movies, the story doesn't keep up with the stunts. This movie was 3 hours long and I didn't fall asleep. I loved it. I was engaged. I just thought it was absolutely incredible. So I added that one to my list.
Okay, wait. I need to know, though. Was it better than Top Gun 2?
I have Top Gun on my list. So
spoiler alert.
We're getting there. Okay.
So,
next up, True Lies. Love it. I have mixed reviews about actually, I don't have great reviews of Arnold Schwarzenegger as governor of my home state of California, but True Lies with Jamie Lee Curtis, I think, is one of the most fun and best Schwarzenegger movie out there.
Yeah.
Action-packed, funny, little romance, very fun. So True Lies on my list. And of course, next up, James Bond. Gotta love it. And I have two favorite James Bonds. Here's another testament to our friendship and our compatibility. I believe you said your favorite movie from James Bond was Live and Let Die. Mine is too. Roger Moore is by far, I think, the superior James Bond. But I also have to say, and this one's controversial, that runner-up for me is Pierce Brosnan. And even though they rank it towards the end of James Bond films, I loved Die Another Day. I thought that was really good. I loved it. I don't know why people like poo-poo it. I actually think Daniel Craig is the worst James Bond, but people love to just tear apart Pierce Brosnan. So
no, he's right up there for me too. But I'm gonna have to take issue with you because I think Sean Connery is the best James Bond
for me. I know. Oh, you think he's the best?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. It's all right. I put him at number 3. I do Roger Moore, Pierce Brosnan, then Sean Connery.
Okay.
Then George Latin. No, I'm just kidding. No one ever mentions him. All right. So James Bond, always great. And by the way, I don't poo-poo any James Bond. I could watch them all anytime, anywhere. Yeah. Star Wars. Gotta put Star Wars on my list. Yeah, I'm not a huge nerd for the new stuff, but the original 3, so what is it, 4, 5, and 6 are the ones I really liked. I think because I grew up with them. Empire Strikes Back is my favorite. And also an honorable mention to the spinoff of that franchise. Do you ever remember the stupid movie called Spaceballs?
Yes. Yeah.
I used to watch that dumb movie every time it was on television. So anytime I mention Star Wars, I must mention Spaceballs because
that's funny.
Well, it's Joan Rivers, who I think always made me laugh. And
yes.
Oh my gosh, who's the director of Blazing Saddles? Mel Brooks. No, it was a Mel Brooks movie, which is why I was.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Now we're just going through nostalgia. So see, this is like a chain of, I told you, this is an exercise, this stream of consciousness. So after I thought about Star Wars and Spaceballs, I said, oh my God, I can't not talk about my favorite movies without talking about Ferris Bueller's Day Off. I used to watch that movie all the time. Now, I was the best kid on the planet. I'm maybe not the best, but I never caused my parents any trouble like Ferris Bueller. But for me, it was still very fun to watch a troubled teenager like Ferris Bueller make his parents and his teachers have to scream. Did you hate it?
No, I loved it. And I totally relate to Ferris Bueller because I was that kind of kid in school.
You were?
And I had a really good day. So I had a best friend who lived across the street from me, and her mom died of cancer when we were both about 11. So we went through this really huge thing together. But I still vividly remember the day we each called into the school for the other, getting each other a medical excuse. Oh, she's sick. She won't be in today. And we took off and played hooky and got in so much trouble.
But did you have fun?
Yes. So I love Ferris Bueller. I completely agree.
I love it. Plus anything like Jennifer Grey and Matthew Broderick. These are just the actors I watched growing up.
Yeah.
Back to the Future was the other one that I watched all the time. With Michael J. Fox. And of course, that's just fun. Being in California, there are a lot of events that I'm lucky enough to go to at the Warner Brothers backlot, and always to see the clock tower and see all that. It's just a fun thing because it's so iconic. Also, Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade. I think he's always great. I'm a fan of Harrison Ford in those action movies. Okay, we're getting there. We're getting there. So far, so good?
Yeah, I'm loving it.
I couldn't do a top 10. I just had to do all this. All right. A Disney movie that I actually really love. I love a lot of the Disney movies, especially the older ones, but there is a movie that I watch. And if you need a good cry, Up is one of the most, I think it's just one of the sweetest movies. Have you watched Up with Ed Asner? It's the story about the old man and the old woman. They have this incredible relationship and the wife dies and he's very sad and he has a relationship with this little boy. And it's a sweet story. I could cry about it right now. I think for anybody who's ever had to move on from a loss, it's a really beautiful film. It's a cartoon, but I think it's sweet and it's kind. And I think it's actually very smart for what Disney can churn out, especially as of late, because Disney has become very disappointing.
I would put in the same category with that. The way you described that is the way I would describe WALL-E. Did you ever see that one?
That was another good one too. That's probably the last decent movie that Disney made, I would say.
Yeah.
Is that controversial?
And I have to tell you a funny story about WALL-E. We went to see it as a family up in New Hampshire where we have a summer house. And our son, who was probably at the time 11 or 12, he loved it so much he insisted on going back a second time by himself to see it again.
So
I know. I just thought that was so sweet.
You have to remember
but I will
that.
watch. I think I only saw Up once, and I must have been distracted by my kids being too young and annoying or something. And so I think I'm going to have to go watch that one again because I have no recollection of it.
It's a sweet movie. I think you'll like it. All right. Good. Now Top Gun. Top Gun, the original, Top Gun Maverick. Love them both. And actually, not to mention Val Kilmer again, but that's where I first saw Val Kilmer was in Top Gun. And then that's where it kind of traveled into Tombstone. But there was just something extremely exciting and fun and I think patriotic. It's when we used to actually glorify the military, right? About the Air Force in Top Gun. And certainly Maverick was great too. These are fun action-packed movies. And again, the stories keep up, which I think is important because you don't always get that. All right. Back to nostalgia again. I'm down to a few. Stand By Me, which I watched all the time when I was a kid.
The one about all the boys who were friends.
Coming of age.
And I remember like that they go into a house burns down.
They're looking for a body. Remember, they're investigating the death of a body that they found. And so it's kind of a mystery, but it's also a story about their relationships and being different, all different walks of life, and knowing that they're basically only going to be together for a summer. It was really cute. But when I started thinking about Stand By Me, it's like, the real buddy movie I loved when I was little, Goonies. I watched Goonies all the time. All of the stinking time. Goonies. That's all day long. And I loved Goonies because, for a couple of reasons. I loved Cyndi Lauper. Once again, these people, they come out with their political spectra, their political stuff, and they disappoint you every time. But I loved Cyndi Lauper. I was such a fan. I dressed up like Cyndi Lauper twice for Halloween in first grade.
Oh, funny.
Yeah, I think it was first.
I think I need photographic evidence of that.
Let me tell you, it was a look. I remember there was a bright yellow lace skirt, hot pink neon tights, a side ponytail, and my mom, I thought it was the coolest thing. She let me spray my hair pink and orange. Because remember, I went to a Catholic school, so we weren't allowed to do crazy hair colors like kids do nowadays. I mean, you couldn't do any of that. We couldn't wear makeup, no nail polish.
Yeah.
So it was a big deal to go as Cyndi Lauper. And what's been really fun is that Robert Davi, who is a conservative, was in the movie. And I have had such a fun time. He's a friend now. And so, yeah. And knowing that he was such a, and I was kind of like, you kind of get scared of those guys when you were a younger person watching these, but getting to know Robert Davi now is really fun. And I think that was, again, a story that resonated with me when I was young, because it's about coming together with, these friendship movies, again, I guess is a theme, and looking and knowing that you only have, you're living life and you're exploring things and the action of trying to get to the treasure, basically. And that's what they did. And then finally, just recently, I have to add Reagan to the list. I really loved it. I loved the story of Ronald Reagan. I feel like lately that's just been a film that's on my mind. I thought the ending of that film was so incredibly touching. The story I loved for a number of reasons. I absolutely love Jon Voight. I think he's one of the most incredible actors. I thought that he was really great in Reagan. I didn't necessarily think that we needed to have, a fake foreign agent basically talking us through the Reagan life. But what I did really love about the film is that you got to see every era. Which I thought it did a really great job of setting the scene, whether it was the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s. I mean, they really kind of carried it out. You could feel the era that you were in. The incredible story of Ronald Reagan, who, he and Donald Trump are the favorite presidents that I have of my lifetime. I share a birthday with Ronald Reagan. I've always felt this kinship to him. When I was a little kid, I wrote a letter to Ronald Reagan because I just loved him because we shared a birthday, and I just thought he was such a great president. And so because I was so young during the Reagan presidency, I think it was really great to see it unfold on the screen. And I just thought they did a great job telling the story and showing the scene. And I think it reminds us how many correlations there are with what we see Donald Trump going through right now, as far as the coverage with the media and the protests. And I mean, they definitely had a lot of similarities. And probably the biggest is that President Trump values peace through strength. He is pro the American way of life, anti-communism, and he understands the power of words. Like, these other leaders don't seem to get that. Ronald Reagan used strong rhetoric to take down communism in Russia that was spreading throughout the world. I mean, how incredible is that? And that's what President Trump has done too. That's how he kept us safe for 4 years. And I think, so I felt really good leaving the theater. So I wanted to, it probably wouldn't make it to my top 10 list, but I do really think that it's such a good film, an important film. President Trump's Warsaw speech from when he was president, I think it was 2018, is one of my favorite speaches that he's ever given.
It was brilliant. Yep.
So Reagan-esque. And so that was just a great reminder of who Ronald Reagan was. And I loved it. And I thought the ending was so beautiful and paid tribute to his love with Nancy. And it's just a good film.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. I love your list. What I think is interesting is it shows our age difference, because you're you're like 20 years younger than me, at least. So it's interesting because you have a lot of favorites that were just way past my time. So there was never that opportunity for them to really impact me. Like the Star Wars, I just kind of was doing other things, but so many of them I 100% agree with. And I must say the big surprise here is Tombstone.
Really? And that'd probably be number one on this list. So watch it. I'll rewatch it this weekend too and see if I still love it as much as I always have.
Okay. Now I have to throw a quick one out there, because I just watched one of my old favorites. So I think there's always, I think we all have those movies that we happen to catch on TV, because that's how we used to watch a lot of these, right? And you happen to catch it on TV when you're of a particular age that it just really hits you. So I would put, like, for me, Dr. Zhivago, for example. And I actually saw that one in a theater. But, I think it's one of the reasons Live and Let Die is so impactful for me, because I think it was the first Bond movie that I saw in a theater. So it was just made it extra special and extra powerful.
Exactly.
But one of the ones that I saw on TV as a kid that really impacted me, and I've probably just gone back to watch it for the first time since I was 11, is the James Stewart movie, Harvey. Have you ever seen that?
I haven't.
Do you know the story?
I don't.
James Stewart plays a character who has a best friend, which is a 6'3" invisible rabbit.
Oh,
And I have to tell you, it is one of the funniest, craziest, sweetest movies. Like, it really holds up. So you're going to have to go back and watch it.
I am going to watch it. I'm actually going to make a note of Harvey right now. I'll tell you what, I'll watch Harvey and you watch Tombstone.
I will watch Tombstone.
We'll have a little date on that. Jimmy Stewart was so talented. And, if you start going into it, my gosh, especially, I don't know, he was incredibly good. And but I have to, before we wrap, what was the first movie you saw in the movie theater? Because I think that one always sticks out.
I don't honestly know. I remember seeing, oh my gosh, my mom took us to see 2001: A Space Odyssey when I was a kid, which was so over my head. I have no idea. I think it was, it might have been, is it possible that it was the original version of Yours, Mine, and Ours?
Oh, okay. That would be
a family with that's what I'm sort of vaguely, it was either that, it could have been, I know that one of the movies that came out when I was also really young was Mary Poppins, which I love.
I should put that on the list. That's enough. See, I'm telling you, this list, it's a work in progress. We might have to do other movie episodes.
We definitely have to do rounds 2 and 3, 100%.
Yeah. Okay. So my first movie in the theater was E.T.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. That was the first movie. I was young. And it was the first movie I remember seeing in the theater, and I was scared to death. It was like this little alien. Think about how scary E.T. looks. And I remember being really scared, but also not wanting to leave the film because it was like a big deal. My mom took me to the movies. And little fun fact, the house that I grew up in was actually right near where they filmed E.T. So it was like a rite of passage. Whenever I'd have a friend spend the night, I'd always make my mom drive up the street and show everybody the E.T. house. And
oh, wow.
that was the coolest thing. They made it near me.
But because it scared you, does that mean like it doesn't go into your top films? Like, was it not a favorite?
I loved it. I think that it was... I really don't even remember how old I was. I want to say I was about 5 or 6.
Oh, and I remember, that's young.
Yeah, I was young. And so it was a big deal to go to the movies. I do remember that. But E.T., the figure E.T. scared me because of the way he looked. He was an alien. And then I was afraid that there were aliens. That was the other thing. I had anxiety even as a child. And then there was also the sad, like leaving behind Elliot. Like I remember just crying. I don't know that it was the best movie for me to see at the age that I was.
Yeah.
I've watched it several times since then, and I think it's a good movie. It's just, I wouldn't put it on my list of like have to sees. But I mean, actually, I do think you have to see it. It just wouldn't be on my list of favorites. And maybe because of that crazy reaction, seeing it just a little bit too young. And I would also add, though, that even though I was scared and cried at the end of E.T., I had an E.T. doll that I slept with all the time. Do you remember those? They were like... They were like a leather alien with a glowing heart. They were like the most bizarre looking thing, but I definitely had one of those that sat on my shelf and I would sleep with them at night.
No, I don't think I registered that because I think I was like in college when E.T. came out.
But I just didn't know if you remember the toy,
No, not at all. I'm more the generation of, hold on, I'm looking to see what year it came out. And yeah, I'm exactly right. I graduated from college the year it came out, 1982.
Oh, God. Yeah. So do you know how old I was?
Well, how old?
I was 4. No wonder my mother, like, that is ridiculous.
I think you need to have words with your mother.
Okay. The other thing, full disclosure, happy women, I'm going to give you a little something. I've had a stern talking to with my mother about this, and you know her, Katie. She loves you. Do you know I can remember as a first grader standing in my room, cleaning it while she was, we were cleaning the house. I had to clean my room, singing Marvin Gaye's Sexual Healing.
Oh my gosh.
Not appropriate, Mom. Not appropriate.
That is too funny.
I don't think I knew what I was singing, but you know what? She did. She should have stopped it.
It's so funny because I think if your mom is being rather prim is not quite the right word, but I just remember discussing George Eliot and Jane Austen with her. I do not think of her as a Marvin Gaye fan.
What's funny is that my mom is such an interesting. We should actually have her on the podcast someday. She's so interesting.
Oh, we should.
She's a liberal, but she's my biggest fan. She'll come to every conservative event. She's so sweet. She listens to my radio show every day. She listens to this podcast. Hi, Mom. So she's such a supporter, but she got her master's degree in Shakespearean studies. Yeah. She already today, and we're doing this show in October, has read 60 books this year. She told me she's been counting. I mean, she's an incredible mind for literature, but when I was a kid, every week she'd buy the Star and the Inquirer, which she said was junk food. And she still has a part that goes straight down the center of her hair because she was the world's biggest hippie in the 70s. So she's multifaceted.
Funny.
A little so buttoned up, a little not. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you all for indulging us. Our movie list is out. We'll do another one of these for the holidays. I think that'll be fun for Christmas. And of course, we always want to remind you to pick up Katie's book. It's out right now. It's called Next Gen Marxism. And you can find all of her information at katiegorka.org. You can also find her on Facebook. Just search for Catherine Gorka. On Twitter at Gorka Katie. And you can find me on social media too, Jennifer Horn Radio on Facebook and Instagram, Jennifer Horn on Truth and on X. And make sure that you continue to support our podcast. We appreciate every single one of you. The numbers keep going up, and we know it's because you've made this a part of your routine. So please, 5-star reviews are very helpful. Share the podcast with your friends. You can connect on all the platforms, SalemPodcastNetwork.com. Thanks so much for joining us. It's another episode of the Happy Women Podcast.